Hi everyone, I'm Yolanda. Welcome to my channel. Welcome to another tutorial. Today I'm going to be making a graduation cap. This cake can be made as a single cake or it can be made as a cake top. So I hope that you enjoyed today's tutorial. Let's get started. To start, let's place a piece of wax paper on our cutting mat or cutting board. This will help to remove the square later on. Now roll out your fondant to about 1/4 of an inch thick. I'm using a mixture of 50% gum paste and 50% fondant. I'm going to measure with my ruler. Make sure that your ruler is clean. You are going to measure and then you are going to cut with a fondant cutter. Cut the square. The square should measure 8 inches. My square is going to measure 8 inches because my cake pans are 6 inches in diameter. And so you always need to adjust your square depending on how big your cake pans are, how big your cake is going to be. So for my cakes that are 6 inches in diameter, I'm going to use an 8-inch square. And here I have all my cake layers that I'm going to be using for this cake. I've used 2 types of cake pans. This one I use for the bottom and second layer because it's wider on top and narrow at the bottom. So when I'm going to make the cake, I'm going to flip it and I'm going to put the widest part at the bottom and the narrower part on top. And I'm going to use this one that has straight edges for also the top. I've made 2 cakes with straight edges cake pans, but I think I'm just going to be using one because I'm going to divide the bottom layer into 2. So my cake is going to have 3 layers. So that means that I'm going to be using buttercream as filling twice. Don't forget you could put this cake on top of a bigger cake if you have a lot of guests. You can use this cake as topper, which is great. You can use it as a single cake or use it as a topper for a bigger cake. To begin, I'm going to remove the crown that formed on top of the bottom layer. You know, sometimes when you bake your cakes and for some reason those crowns form on top, so we need to eliminate that because we want our cakes to be level. Now we are going to spread a little bit of buttercream at the bottom of this cake. Then we are going to sit this cake on a cake circle the same size as the cake and then sit it on the cake board. Since this cake is kind of small, I'm going to work right on the cake board. Now I'm dividing this layer into two layers. Then I'm going to fill in between these 2 layers. Then I'm going to also fill the top with buttercream and set the 3rd layer on top of that. And that will be it. So now what I'm doing is I'm shaving off the top straight edge cake because it's a little bit wider than the second layer, and I want the first and the second layer to be the same width, and then the bottom will be a little bit wider, which is what I'm looking for because some of the caps are wider at the bottom. But if you have only straight edge cake pans, you can make your cakes in those pans as well. Always freeze your cakes before carving or trimming. Now it's time for my crumb coat. I'm going to crumb coat this cake to seal in all the crumbs that are around so that those crumbs do not show up when I put my final layer of buttercream or my fondant. So that's why we need a crumb coat most of the times. Then let the cake freeze for 15 minutes. And now it's time for the final coat of buttercream for this cake. After the second coat of buttercream, freeze for 5 or 10 minutes and then bring it out, at which point you can, with a spatula and warm water, you can start smoothing the cake. Then refrigerate the cake for 10 to 15 minutes and then you will bring it out. Let it be at room temperature for 5 to 10 minutes before covering it with fondant. To find out the size of the circle that you have to cut out of fondant to cover the cake, you will need a ruler and then you will measure the height of the cake. You will multiply that by 2 and add that to the width of the cake. For this cake, I will need a fondant circle of about 13 inches in diameter. Now I'm rolling out my fondant to maybe a 1/4 of an inch thick. I need a circle of about 13 inches in diameter. So I think I just acquired that. So I'm going to pick up the fondant, that's why I'm dusting the surface so it doesn't stick to the rolling pin. I'm going to pick it up and drape it over my cake. And sometimes if you're not careful, accidents can happen. Like this one here. You see how the bottom of the skirt stuck to the top of the fondant on the surface, but nothing that cannot be fixed. Okay, and we continue to adhere the fondant to the buttercream on my cake. When you are going to attach the fondant, when you are going to cover with the fondant, you need to first press on the fondant very lightly. Press it onto the cake very lightly. Don't pull the fondant down because that is going to cause that the fondant to crack. So you need to do this very lightly, very gently. So now it's time to adhere the top to the cake, the square to the cake, using edible glue or just plain water, you will attach the square to the cake, measuring and making sure that all the sizes are equally spaced. If you are in a rush to make this cake and your square has not dried or you don't have time for it to dry, just place it on a hard cardboard, and you are going to take a piece of wax paper, place it on your cake, and then just sit the cardboard with the square on top, and you're going to sit that on top of the cake. To make the tassel, just take a small piece of fondant and roll it into a snake-like tube. Then fold it in half and twist each end to the opposite direction. Now let's make the fringes for the tassel. We are going to do this using a small piece of fondant. Roll it into a snake-like, very thin, and put it in the extruder. Make sure that it's all the way in. Now take a disc that has a lot of holes. Put the cap on and start working your extruder. As you twist the extruder, you will see that the fondant is going to come out in fringes, just like this. Then you're going to take those fringes and you are going to fold them in half, and you're going to attach those to the tassel. And that is it. With some edible glue or water, moisten the square or the top of the cap where you want the tassel to fall. Just like this, and then attach the fringes. Use a small piece of fondant to attach the fringes. And to finish off, take a small piece of fondant, roll it out, take a giant tip, cut a circle, and then glue that circle to the beginning of the tassel in the middle of the square. I'm going to finish decorating the cap, and when I'm finished, I'm going to come back to you to show you. So here is the finished product. As you can see, I've placed the year of graduation, 2016, on top of the square. I also placed a flower, which I made out of fondant, a message of congratulations, and I made a diploma rolling a piece of white fondant and I tied it with a satin ribbon. I used the same ribbon also to put at the bottom of the cap. This is a very easy cake to make. Like I said before, you can make this cap and place it on top of a bigger cake if you have a lot of people, a lot of guests for your party. Thank you for watching. I hope that you had as much fun as I did making this cake. My congratulations to all the graduates. I will see you back here the next time with another tutorial. In the meantime, please share and subscribe to my channel, and may God bless you.